Okay, hello, good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, November the 10th, and this is a live webinar on planning for veterans. Seems fitting with Veterans Day being tomorrow. And I do know that we have at least one veteran on the call, so I would like to take this moment to thank all of you veterans for your service. As I mentioned, this is a live webinar streaming on both Zoom and Facebook. I'd like to thank you all for joining us and fitting us into your daily schedule. So my name is Ashley, and I'm here with attorney Deanna Ebley, who I will be introducing in just a moment. But first, a little background on your host, Russo Law Group. We have focused on elder law, special needs, and estate planning since 1985. With over 35 years of experience and I believe over 150 years of combined professional experience, we've had the privilege of serving over 17,000 families and 4 convenient office locations. We are a large firm consisting of 6 partners and 4 associates, and we are ranked as a best law firm by the US News. Make sure that you are subscribed to our blog. We share recent published articles and educational resources, plus news and events happening at the firm. I will mention just a few things. Our managing partner, Vincent J. Russo, is presenting on an advanced estate tax planning webinar next week. That's on November the 17th. If you're interested in attending, let me know, and I will send you the link to register. Russo Law Group is participating in fundraising for this year's annual breast cancer walk, and we are proud sponsors of the Alzheimer's Disease Resource Center Walk Your Way fundraiser. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some housekeeping. We've allotted roughly 30 minutes for the presentation and Q&A. All of your lines are muted, but you may type your questions into the questions box provided on the Zoom toolbar. If you're on Facebook, you can use the comment section. We will be monitoring it throughout the program. When sending your questions, please remember to include your email address. We will do our best to answer every question, but if we run out of time, we will follow up after the program. We are sharing the PowerPoint. Please write in the chat box and let me know if you cannot see or hear something. This webinar is being recorded. We will share the recording along with the PowerPoint via email by the end of this week. It will also be available to stream on our website. And finally, please complete the survey that will appear in your web browser when you leave the webinar. All right, let's get to know today's presenter, shall we? Miss Deanna Ebley. She's a partner with almost 20 years of estate planning experience.
Makes me sound old.
We are 1 year shy of that mile marker. She's the lead planning attorney in our Garden City and Manhattan office. She's also an active member of several bar associations and currently appointed to the executive committee of the New York State Bar Association Medicaid Division. All right, that is all for me. I think we are going to turn off our webcams and focus on the PowerPoint. Deanna, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that. And I too wanted to take the time to thank all of our veterans out there. My dad was a veteran. My grandfather, both of my grandparents were veterans, and my husband's grandfather was a veteran. And I have nothing but pride in supporting you. And, there's benefits out there that not enough of you are tapping into or even know about. And this is an opportunity for you to hear about some of those benefits. So please, I encourage you. You are the reason why we're free. And so let's make sure that you get the benefits you're entitled to. I am just a disclaimer at the very start. I am working from home today. I am sitting outside because it's gorgeous out and there's chaos going on in my house. And the dog is outside with me. So if you hear some barking, my apologies. But what we'll cover today are what benefits are available to veterans, how is eligibility determined, and how can a trust help protect assets? And so we're going to dive right in. So when we talk about what benefits are available to veterans, there's a little bit that you need to know in reference to that, and that is veteran has the umbrella, has an umbrella, and we need to know what the definition is. So a veteran is a person who served as a member of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, or Coast Guard, or as a public commissioned officer of the Public Health Service, the Environmental Science Service Administration, or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And that service must have been a full-time service, and they had to have been discharged other than dishonorably. And that's the veteran that we're talking about today. So veterans have earned various benefits in service to our community, and this is your opportunity to hear what some of the most common ones are that people utilize. So there's money available for veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces, the Coast Guard, and also their surviving spouse of a wartime veteran. And I think that that's another key component that people don't always recognize, is that surviving spouses are counted in this mix. Next slide. That's the veterans and the spouses. And just so you have some sense of the benefits, there's approximately 54 million claimants out there from World War II between the veteran, the dependents, and the spouses that can qualify or can make a claim for benefits. And I promise you that is not a resource that's being utilized enough. In fact, it's my opinion that the reason why the laws changed, and you're going to hear about that later in the slide, the reason why the laws changed a few years ago in qualifying for some of these benefits is simply because it had been such an untapped resource. And then people like myself started getting out there talking about getting benefits, qualifying for benefits, that people started actually trying to use those benefits. And once they started trying to use the benefits, somebody said, hold on, wait up. People are actually using this money that's set aside. Let's put restrictions on it. So that's my personal opinion, but you'll hear that there's some guidelines now. It used to be, well, we think that they look at this. This is generally how things work. But they finally, in 2018, set some standards and put some guidelines that are, black and white rules of hard and fast. This is what you need to qualify, which is good because it takes away the unknown of how we have to do things. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we're talking about benefits, there's two things that you need to be mindful of. There's VA disability compensation. And so VA disability compensation is not limited by the veteran's income or assets. They are service related. So a veteran that suffered an injury or disease or had a condition that was made worse while on active duty, or a veteran whose injury is rated as a percentage of loss, qualifies based on that table for this benefit. And so about this benefit, you should understand that there's 3 criteria to be met before a veteran can receive service-connected compensation from the VA. The first is that there must be a current disability diagnosed by a medical professional. The veteran is presumed to have been in good health when he or she entered the service. And if there was a pre-existing condition, there is a presumption that such condition was aggravated by military service. The second thing that you need to know is that there must be evidence of some precipitating disease, injury, or event while in service that is recorded in the military service records. And third, there must be a link between the current disability and the in-service disease, injury, or event. And the burden of proof is only that it is likely as not, it is as likely as not that there is a link. So let me give you an example. Certain medical conditions have been designated by the VA as being presumptively service connected. For veterans exposed to Agent Orange, diabetes, and certain types of cancer are presumptively service connected. And that same presumption exists for World War II veterans who were exposed to radiation in the Pacific Theater. So this particular type of compensation, as I mentioned, is a compensation that doesn't look at assets and income. They do a medical assessment to see a percentage that they feel that you're disabled, and then the compensation is provided based on your percentage of disability rating, rather than your income, assets, and some of the other stuff that we are going to discuss. Next slide. Okay. So you should know that extra money for veterans and spouses is available, and it's available for wartime veterans. So this is the pension, the veteran pension, as opposed to the veteran compensation that we were just discussing. The veteran pension, they look at assets and income, and the other aspect is that it's a wartime service. And so when it's wartime service, the veteran themselves is eligible for up to $2,120. And if it's a surviving spouse, it's $1,228. If the veteran is single, it's generally $1,911. And if it's a couple, a husband, a couple that is married, the maximum is $3,032. Okay, I'm sorry, I think my papers got mixed up because I was looking for a different slide, but I'm sure it's there. So just so you have a sense, these charts are coming right from va.gov. This is talking about the pensions that are available. And we're going to go into detail about some of the things that you see as far as type of benefit, where it talks about basic pension versus housebound. I'm sure I saw some of the names, and I know that some of you are likely familiar with Aidan Attendance. So the middle column is actually the maximum pension rate, and the far right column is the maximum monthly pension rate. So this is for the veteran. Next slide. This is for the surviving spouse. So you wouldn't both get, it's a surviving spouse. So if the veteran should pass before their spouse, the surviving spouse is entitled to those benefits on a different level, because they didn't serve, but they were the spouse of someone who served. So they are a little bit lower, but these are the benefits that are available. Okay, so what are the requirements? Requirements for special monthly pension are wartime service or the widow of a wartime veteran, unreimbursed medical expenses. You should be 65 or over, permanently or totally disabled, and it's non-service connected. So that just goes back to the compensation that we were talking about before. I think that what was skipped was the slide that talks about, and I don't know why it was skipped, that talks about wartime. So we do have something that we can share with you that it gives you a breakdown of what's considered wartime. World War II, for example, runs from December 7th, 1941 through July 25th, 1947. And just so you have a sense, what they're saying is you have to have served at least one day during a wartime period. So we have a breakdown of all of the criteria as it plays out for each individual war, from World War II, Korean War, the Vietnam War, Persian Gulf War, and we can provide that for you also. And remember, with those wars, you have to have been other than dishonorably discharged in order to qualify for those benefits. Okay, so getting back to this slide. Now I feel caught up. This is talking about the pension benefit. That pension benefit is contingent on your income and assets. So there is an eligibility requirement. So the new rules, which are new, the last 2 years, these rules have come out. And those rules are that it's a 36-month look back. That just means that if you're looking for this benefit, you have to provide financial documentation of all of your assets over the last 36 months. The penalty that they impose can be up to 5 years for assets transferred. It depends, they do a formula, it depends on a calculation, and that penalty is determined by dividing the value of transferred assets by the maximum annual pension rate. So if you made a gift to somebody of $10,000, they're going to take that in our numbers, I think it was 2,120. They're going to divide that 10,000 by that number, and that's how many months you have to wait before you are eligible, assuming everything else meets the criteria. Your combined net worth and income limit, your combined net worth can't be over $128,640. That's for 2020. That number likely goes up every year. They keep it consistent with the Medicaid's allowance for the community resource allowance. And your residence is exempt, but you can't have a piece of property that exceeds 2 acres. Okay, so for example, a married veteran applies for VA pension with Aidan Attendance allowance. The monthly benefit he's trying to qualify for is $2,120. During the past 3 years, the veteran contributed $11,000 to the Salvation Army and a not-for-profit organization. He also gave his 2 children $1,000 each birthday for the last 3 years. And as a result, the charitable contribution, the cash gifts to his children, which were $17,000 total for the 3 years, he will be penalized for 8 months, 8.02 months when he applies. That is just taking the 17,000, dividing it by the 2,120. That's an example of how they do that calculation. I'm sorry, Ashley, I saw that you moved forward, but I didn't. So what about long-term care? Because we all have concerns that we want to stay home and we want to get care at home and it's expensive. And how are we going to do that? And does the VA help? So the first thing you're going to look to is your private insurance, which I will tell you, Medicare does not cover home care on any great level. Medicare's intent is to diagnose, treat, and rehab. So they have very, very, very limited coverage for home care. Medicaid is also another avenue that we use to pay for home care services. And VA Aidan Attendance can also be a resource in trying to get benefits, get access to cash to keep family members or yourself home. Okay, next slide. So Aidan Attendance is something that we often hear about. Aidan Attendance is a benefit that is provided assuming you meet the qualifications in that income and asset test. And it's to provide cash or a monetary benefit that can be used to allow someone to stay home if they meet the criteria, both from an income and asset standpoint and from a standpoint of needing care at home. So some of the things they look at are one's inability to dress and undress oneself, the inability to keep oneself presentable. You know, you worry sometimes that as we age and start to forget things, are we putting on dirty clothes? Are we, not showering regularly? That, those are hygiene issues we worry about. The inability to bathe oneself, the inability to feed oneself, the inability to toilet oneself, or frequent need of prosthetic adjustment, or substantially confined to his or her dwelling or ward if institutionalized, and immediate premises, and will continue throughout the lifetime. So it's not just that, maybe you fell, you broke your hip, and you're confined just while you're getting rehab and you're going to get better. This is a continuous throughout the lifetime experience. Next slide. Homebound differs in the sense that Homebound, we need one single disability rated at 100% disabled. So the disability rating comes into the conversation of the compensation package that we discussed earlier, where I was giving the example of Agent Orange. So you need to have a disability rating of 100% on one particular disability. You could have more than one rating, plus either a second disability rating of 60% or more. So there's two different things going on with you, and one is 100%, the other one is at least 60%. Or you're permanently housebound, which means you're substantially confined to your dwelling and the immediate premises, and that will continue throughout your life. Okay. Note, a disability rating is not required if you're over the age of 65. Next slide. Okay. How do they determine eligibility? They basically take the gross household income and subtract out your out-of-pocket medical expenses and divide that by the income for veteran administration purposes. So if you're entitled to $2,120, they would take what income you have, your pension, your Social Security, IRA benefits. They would take that, they would subtract out what your medical out-of-pocket expenses are, and then they divide that by the benefit you're allowed. Because the numbers I'm giving you are maximums, you may fall somewhere in the middle of that maximum depending on how this eligibility determination presents itself. Next slide. So one of the things that we do in our office are veteran asset protection trusts, and how can this help, and what is the basic difference of this? Next slide. So a veterans asset protection trust is actually, in essence, two trusts in one. And the reason why it's structured this way is that, as I was telling you before, a house is exempt for asset and income purposes when making determinations for eligibility, but cash is not. So the Veterans Asset Protection Trust can help you qualify for Aidan Attendance and Medicaid by keeping your house separate and apart. Even though it's all in one trust, it essentially says the house is the house and leave the house the way that it is under this umbrella, but wait, I have a spare umbrella and I'm going to put the cash under here. So the way the assets are held in the trust helps to make them not available for the purposes of qualifying for veterans for veterans benefits. You have to remember that the VA has set this 3-year time frame for their look back. So they look back 36 months. So anytime you want to do this type of protection, really you have to do this type of planning in advance of needing the care. So you want to give yourself at least 3 years to get that protection, because once you put the house and the cash and everything in this trust, you want to be able to get through the 3 years. Now, the house we know is exempt. So putting the house in the trust is not a problem if you needed services following. The only time it becomes more of a concern is if you put the house in today, but then the house gets sold, because then the cash is something we need to definitely be beyond that 3 years with. But in all instances, if you're doing an asset protection trust, I would definitely want to give yourself that 3-year window so that there's no question or concern about your qualifications. Okay, next slide. So to summarize, if you meet the age and service and health requirements to qualify, and your financial net worth is less than $128,640, you're not affected by the October 18th, it says deadline, but the October 18th deadline was from 2018. So you're not affected by the issues with the law. You can qualify for VA benefits starting in the month following the filing of your benefits application. The VA pays you retro payments for the months when your application is pending. So if you file an application today and you met all the criteria, you were definitely eligible, but it took them 6 or 9 months to actually approve it, they will retroactively cover your costs, reimburse you for what you should have gotten date of filing. And so that's very important to know. All right, next slide. So what should you do now? You should contact an experienced eligible law attorney like myself. Review your overall estate plan, because you want to see everything that you have and know, what makes sense to put in a asset protection trust versus what is best to keep out. You want to update and implement a plan to protect you and your family. So you want to start the plan now, and then every few years you should definitely review that plan and make sure it still makes sense for you. And then finally, you want to receive the benefits that you've earned, because you worked so hard for them, and they're out there and they're a great resource, and you should definitely be exercising your right to them. Okay, and so I think we may have a minute or two for questions. I did receive one question that I know of so far, and I'm outside, so it's a little hard to see if any others came in, but let me give you the one question. My mother is the spouse of a deceased veteran, served honorably in World War II. She resides in Nassau County. She has dementia and is now in need of a 24-hour aid. Her savings are running out. How can I find out if she qualifies for Veterans Aidan Attendance benefit? Is there a place in Nassau County where someone can walk me through it and complete whatever papers are needed to apply? Absolutely, yes. And if you have a pen handy, hold on a second, because I have the phone number right here. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I'll give you Nassau and Suffolk. So Nassau County is at 2201 Hempstead Turnpike, Building Q as in quarter, in East Meadow. And the phone number is 516-572-6565. You should also be mindful that, Aidan Attendance probably isn't going to completely pay for 24/7 care. So you may also want to contact us to talk about the options that mom has for Medicaid, because Medicaid does offer a community-based service where somebody could come into the home and provide home care for her. And the two together may be beneficial to you. And the Suffolk County information is H. Lee Dennison Building, 100 Veterans Memorial Highway, 3rd floor in Hauppauge. And the phone number there is 631-853-8387. Ashley, do we have any? Oh, wait, I see in the queue. Hold on.
We did. We had a question come through on the chat, and we also just had one in the
Okay,
Q&A.
so on the chat, I see, what if you want to sell your home and rent, or should you buy? Are there different rules for Florida versus New York? Okay, so that's a lot in those two sentences. VA benefits, generally speaking, are a federal program. So the differences, there shouldn't be any differences because it's a federal program, as opposed to like a Medicaid that has a federal component with a state driven, like the state creates the plan and the federal government supplements it. So when you're talking Medicaid, there's differences across the country, but when you're talking veteran benefits, I don't believe that there are any differences. If you wanted to sell your home and it was in that trust, you can certainly sell your home. Now the question becomes, if you wanted, you could certainly sell that home and use the proceeds within the trust to purchase another home within the trust. That's not a problem. The issue then becomes, if you sold that home and you wanted to go and rent something, your availability to how available is the income or the assets to you. There's going to be some restrictions on that. And that is the kind of thing that you want to have a comprehensive conversation over your options when it comes to that, because not everybody, it's not a cookie cutter world, and not everybody's income is the same. So you want to get a better sense of how to structure that trust to cover all those bases. So that was in the chat. I hope that answered your question. And then, let's see. Can you place IRA funds into a veteran's asset protection trust? Jackson, first and foremost, I heard rumor that you're a veteran, and I thank you for your service. I'm one of those people who goes and places flags at Calvary in May for Memorial Day. It's one of the most moving things I've ever experienced. And if you have never done it or seen it, it's worth every second of your life. Putting an IRA into a veteran's asset protection trust, I would not do that. There are certain protections for the IRA accounts where they can be counted as income as opposed to an asset. So when we look at that 128,000 number, where if the IRA is in a payout status, then they don't count the IRA asset as an asset. The principal isn't an asset. They only count the income and use the income source there. The other concern I have about putting an IRA into a trust is the transfer of ownership is a taxable event, and it could cause you to pay a large tax because it's a lump sum transfer. So I wouldn't, off the top of my head, recommend that. I'd have to have more information. And then if you have Medicaid home care already, can you still apply for Aidan Attendance, or do you have to apply for Aidan Attendance first? I have no issue with you applying for Aidan Attendance in either instance. I know that depending on the county you're in, they sometimes have give you a hard time. I would much rather have you apply no matter what, apply, and then if we have to adjust your income as do a pooled income trust for your income availability, then we adjust from there. But I would much rather you apply and have them deny it and give us a reason that we can argue than not apply at all.
Great. Thanks, Deanna.
All right.
I'm flipping on my webcam here as we close out.
I hope the wind wasn't too much, but it's beautiful out. Everybody should go outside today.
It's a beautiful blue sky. Yes. I wish I was out there right now enjoying the weather. If you need help with your estate plan, please contact us for a planning meeting with one of our attorneys. They'll listen to your concerns, review existing legal documents, offer recommendations, and lay out a plan that's designed specifically to help you. And since you're all attending today's webinar, we are offering an exclusive discount off of your planning meeting, which is good through the end of the year. So just leave us your email address in today's post-webinar survey to claim your coupon. Also, please don't forget to recommend us to your family and friends. Okay, in closing, I want to thank our presenter, Deanna, and we appreciate all of you for joining us this afternoon. Everyone stay safe, be kind to one another, and another huge thank you to our veterans.
Ashley, one quick thing, because Lisa sent a question real quick, but I can answer quick. How long can a surviving spouse collect Aidan Attendance? They should, as long as they meet the qualification, because that one has a calculation to it, there's no time limit on how long they can collect. And with that being said, thank you again to all of our veterans, and everybody have a wonderful day.
And thank you, Pam, for the compliment for Deanna. I'll make sure she sees
it. Yes, thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.